Welcome to the Lila Life Show. I'm your host, Linda Andrews, and I have a very special guest with you today, Leann Wolff, founder of Power of Self, a vision and alignment coach, and just an amazing, I would say, master of human design that I can already sense and feel. And this has been a tool and a practice that has guided me on my journey. And I'm excited to share this episode with you. Welcome to the show, Leann. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate being able to come into your space and share with your audience. This is, of course, a passion of mine, which you will probably hear as we get deeper into the conversation.
Yes, awesome. So I'd love to hear a little brief origin story and how you came into the practice. I know 2012 for many was a big activation year, and that's when you, sounds like, started your journey. So if you could tell us more about that. Your journey started way before 2012, but the human
Right.
design piece and how that's been integrating in your life.
Sure. So I actually was a bank manager for 10 years. And whatever you want to call it, universe, God, whatever, kind of gave me the nudge that I was going to be done in that banking career. So at about the 7 year mark of that banking career, the management staff and the board of directors decided they were going to implement a new computer system. And I remember sitting in that boardroom. This is way prior to human design, sitting there. And when they mentioned it, there was just this full body knowing that I wouldn't be there for the new computer system. It's like I'm going to end my cycle here at this organization the same time the computer system ends its cycle. So fast forward 3 years, because it took 3 years to implement, get everybody trained, right, and all of that. I just exited. My whole team was completely trained, and I exited. And I allowed myself about a year to decompress on my farm. We have a cattle ranch. So I was able to just hang out with my dog and cats and cows and husband and just, do my thing. And when I was ready to just enter back in, I typed into the computer new age business. And human design was the very first thing that popped up.
Wow.
I'm like, what is this? And someone who's already, I've always been curious about astrology and human potential and all that kind of stuff, right? As a kid, my sister used to read me the Guinness Book of World Records, right? And we could just imagine all these things. And when human design popped up, I'm like, oh yeah, this totally feels like home. As soon as I pulled up my chart, I'm like, oh, this is it. So I jumped in, of course, both feet. 8 years later, got every certification that I could get and brought it to my people. And I've probably done, I don't know, I've coached probably 2,500 to 3,000 people in that length of time to just go deeper into who they are, make decisions better, interact with the world better, just be better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my story.
I love it. As you were talking, I was getting this vision of like you have the option to fly blind or with a GPS. What do you want to
Right.
use?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
And you
exactly.
pair the work with business as well, like business
Mm-hmm.
development.
Yeah,
It
I
the
do.
banking story is interesting. I had my finance career from 2011 to
Mm.
2018. It's
Love
a
it.
funny timing. And when I was
Yeah.
starting, they were doing similar tech evolution. And so
Okay.
I was in a unique position where I was on the old system and the new system. And that was like a maddening experience. I just remember this is so crazy. And then through those years, still like the tech was a bit behind, the tech was a bit behind. And, 2018, I had picked a date on a calendar and made the jump.
Mm.
And, okay, like next part of the journey. And I'm thinking it was probably around all that I was first introduced to human design, if I had to guess, like 2016 to 18 area. And I actually remember I would get tastes of it for years. Like I'd have a reading and it
Mm.
wouldn't click, and years later I'd have another reading, and it was just sort of layering in over the years, just enough. And then years later, it was like the most aggressive, whoa, this is very deep, starting to understand how it relates with the gene keys and some of the
Yes.
connections there, and then have since
Mm-hmm.
really found some personal delight in astrology, and I could tell
Mm.
still integrating a lot of it. Now I feel comfortable telling anyone this. There's a lot of deep religious programming that I was really afraid of.
Okay.
And then I'd say the business piece of it, I know there's a lot there about using the tools for business. And I had even
Mm-hmm.
had a business
Mm-hmm.
chart run a while ago, but I hadn't fully immersed into that side of things. I'm curious for you when you see founders and your clients using human design in their life versus the people you know that aren't, what those biggest distinctions are.
So I would say the biggest distinction is like just this deep settling inside that it's all okay.
Mm,
Even the mistakes, right? Anyone that's like not using design or not even using personal development at all in
hmm
business, they are chaotic, they're hectic, they are hustling, they're grinding. And for me, that looks like no matter how much they work out in the gym, their bodies still don't feel right. No matter what they're eating, they still don't feel right because nothing's in alignment. So it's like this constant resistance.
hmm
But for those that have implemented it, and your story is like it's a common story because we have to think about how do I want to say this? The deconditioning process is so important in human design
hmm
because think of a junk drawer, right? Like for years, we put garbage into this junk drawer. We don't know why we're keeping it. We don't really know, oh, well, what does that part go to? We don't really know all the stuff.
hmm
But it's the same as ourselves. All the conditioning that we've had on how we should do business or, what we should be doing for networking or sales pages and all this stuff, all these shoulda, woulda, couldas are like stuck in our cells, just like they're stuck in a junk drawer.
mm
And it takes years to just, empty your junk drawer out, right? And all of a sudden you get to the bottom of the junk drawer and you're like, oh, now I get it. Things start to just be able to slide in there in a more conscious manner, in a more clean manner. And that's how I see design. You can have a reading and you might think, oh, well, that's going to change my life. But there's so much deconditioning, cleaning out of the cells that need to
mm
happen for this to really be a real clear process where you're just really like, it's such a centered feeling when you're not letting the conditioning run the show,
hmm
right? And when any entrepreneurs are going from this space, whether, this week money comes in or doesn't come in, you're still in this level of trust
hmm
that other entrepreneurs can't be.
hmm
Yeah.
Even if it's not all like perfect yet,
No.
or even like a deeper understanding that it's an ebb and flow and evolution of
Yeah.
that. The
Yeah.
perfect is tough language because maybe it never is perfect, but it's like that inner
Yeah.
rest, that inner harmony.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. For
Mm-hmm.
for people that feel deeply into the programming, the conditioning,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they're like, I don't know, I'm sure this is still happening, but the woo woo, like, oh, is
Mm-hmm.
that like, what is your response? How do you like to talk to those people that are like hesitant to get into it because maybe there's a religious concern or just the woo
Right.
woo in general?
Right. Well, first off, I would say, well, God created the stars. So are you scared of the stars?
Mhm.
Right? God created the planets. Are you scared of the planets? No, they're all there to help you.
Mhm.
So that's one thing that I say to religious people is God created the whole thing. So do you want to interact in his world at a heightened level or not? Totally up to you.
Mhm.
Um, but so let me just take your listeners to this space where I don't know how many of them know design or have their charts, but they can go to my website, powerofself.ca. I'm Canadian. You can grab your chart right there. And I just want to take your people over like the conditioning versus, deconditioning type thing. So when you look at a chart, and I'm looking at yours right now, Linda, okay, there's going to be areas that are white. And those areas that are white, those are actually the spaces where we have human interaction, where we learn, where we bring in energy that we're designed to learn about.
Mhm.
anything that's colored in, so whether that be a center, a channel, a gate, there's 26 activations, 13 on the personality side, 13 on the design side. Those activations, that what the planets are asking you to represent are in those activations. So that's your, that's the way you teach other people and represent the energy field. But the deconditioning process is to look at our experiences differently, to look at those experiences and transmutate that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Where, oh, instead of this happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this happened for me. So now I can flip this around and go teach other people because I gained the wisdom of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about design. It's such a pinpointed map that tells you what you're actually here to transmutate and then teach other people. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, you're here to deeply teach people how to change haste, hurry, stress into a more laser focused joy. What actually brings you joy? What pattern brings you vitality? What pattern brings you joy? But you have to learn hurry, haste, stress. You learned it through stress, but now as you deepen into your experience, you're like, no, I'm going to now always look at this through the lens of joy. Would you agree to that statement?
It's blowing my mind a bit because I was a college athlete. I was your like very typical type A hardcore. And I remember the first time that I meditated and I could not sit still for a minute. I was crawling out of my skin. Like the level of stress. I mean, I was the girl in finance that was literally crawling under her desk crying because I hated it so much. So just that stress, like it was feeling like
Mm-hmm.
imploding with the stress. And the first time I meditate, I make it through the minute. And the journey probably around 2012 really did start like the healing process. And it was just completely learning a new way of being. And I was giggling about the joy, as Lila means divine play in Sanskrit. And so this is what the work that I bring to the world. And one of my first, there was two lessons like very early on, maybe middle school even. One was probably middle school. This was around the comfort zone. Like it clicked to me, oh, life is
Mm.
just around about continuing to expand your comfort zone, get out of your
Yes.
comfort zone. That establishes your new comfort zone, then you have a bigger comfort zone. I was pretty aware of that early on. And then the other big aha was the connection of how habits and patterns pretty much rule everything. And that like just the awareness of that blew my mind. And then, oh, what habits and patterns can I create that let me live in a frequency of joy? And that sense,
Yeah.
then this has been like the biggest click in is people will take everything or as much as they can to your full depletion. And so having boundaries from this place of empowerment to protect that joy. And you said laser focus, but another word that has been very powerful medicine for the past year or so is precision. And
Mm-hmm.
like you get your
Mm-hmm.
time, energy, attention, money. This is my acronym team, like your inner team, time, energy, attention,
Yes.
money. And if you're
Nice.
precise with the use of that, what can
Yes.
unlock for you? And I'm sure I annoy people because I'm giving this evidence of a very different experience. It could be like I know it could be triggering. I would understand if it was. I'm aware of that. And I just feel such
Mm-hmm.
integrity to like the ability to choose that each day and not every second sunshine and roses. And it's not about that.
No.
But it's been fascinating to and so yes, it resonates
Mm.
quite deeply.
I love this. I love this. So your acronym, right, is actually, I lean deeper into your design and I go, oh yeah, she's all about the tribe. It's all about this team, this tribe, this energy to take the conformity
Hmm.
and awaken it back into an individual empowered process, because you also have what we call the channel of awakening.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are you here to see and be deeply entrenched in those patterns and really see them, but like
Mm-hmm.
you say, use the precision of which one brings you joy, which one's going to wake you up, and which one's going to let you lead yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And that freedom, like, past couple of
Mm-hmm.
years, I think has been a real test to freedom. And I can remember years ago being really freaked out about freedom. And a friend of mine was like, why do you feel that way? It's within you. But I didn't feel like that in those moments. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like it's not within me. Like I know that's what they say, but it's not. It's not. And
Right.
it reminds me also of the tribe piece. When I first went into finance, this was in 2011. I This is really funny to reflect into. I was leaving a 2-year career in education sales, and I
Mm.
start this, career in finance, and I was telling my boss that I was leaving, and I said I sold my soul to finance. And
Mm.
at the time, I didn't even know what that meant. I hadn't been on this very spiritual path. It was just came out of my mouth. And I still feel weird that I said that. I was like in my early 20s, and that's what came out of my mouth. And that was then the 7-year career. And all leading
Yes.
up to the start of it, I didn't know what a stock or a bond was. I didn't, I was pretty bad with money. I loved to spend. And I thought, I'm going to be able to help women that don't know anything else. Like, I'm going to go through these steps and learn a lot, and I'm going to be able to help other women who also don't know learn. And that's
Yes.
been a very interesting theme and thread all the way through. And it reminds me of so many things after the fact and I share this with people like, you're going to be bad at this. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
suck at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's new. Like, this is skill development. This is completely new. It's okay to fail. It's okay to be like not great yet and just to get started. And that's been a theme over and over. And you probably know the 3-5. I think the three is the
Yes.
trial and error. We share that three.
Yes, we do.
I don't know if there's anything much more maddening than that whole process, but you get a lot out of it. It's very rich in the end.
Yes. And you have 7 of them. I have 6 in my design. You have 7 third lines. So the material world is built off of trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't avoid it, but what we can do is embrace it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we transmutate that. The third line, we are the most adaptable frequency on the
Mm-hmm.
planet because we know when we're bumping into something that doesn't work and we find something that does work, we can adapt quickly and move through that process
Mm-hmm.
in a pretty fine-tuned way, as long as the conditioned mind isn't saying, oh, well, you should do this, or you could do this, blah, 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 right? Nattering and
Mm-hmm.
chattering.
Mm-hmm.
When we lean into that adaptability, oh yeah, third lines are perfect for this process.
That the
Yeah.
this or better mantra, that's what that reminds
Yes.
me of. This or better, we'll
Yes.
figure it out, we'll
Yep.
move through it, we'll be better because of it. Keep
Yep.
going, keep growing, keep learning.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that sometimes I think it can be, especially in business, so intimidating. So much is unknown, so much is
Yes.
new. It's like the drinking from the water hose could be the
Yes.
whole time because you're just evolving
Yes.
through different aspects of the business. And now I just
Yeah.
like to say, like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
This is what
Yeah.
you've signed up for by engaging in business. Like, you're going to be in
Yeah.
growth mode, you're going to be in discovery mode, you're going to be in experimentation. If you're not
Yeah.
cut out for that, just at least know that these are the cards that you're going to be exploring down this
Yes.
journey. And I don't know
Yeah.
where things got so awry with what is business and what it even means to, serve, provide value to others through some product, service, and being able to understand there's a lot you're not going to know in that process.
So I'm going to give you my belief,
Yeah.
and your people can take this and do what they need to it. I believe that the marketing world has people chasing money
Mm-hmm.
instead of actually operating from center.
Mm.
So all like YouTube or Facebook ads, right? like chasing 10K months and chasing, you know, oh, I'm going to give you $120,000 guarantee, or chasing this or chasing that. People forget that money is a currency, and it's an exchange of value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if we're chasing it, then we're not being the conduit to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
We need to go from center and allow for money to flow through us. That's what the laws of the universe indicate to us.
Mm-hmm.
So once we are receptive to this, then when we do make a mistake, it doesn't feel like it's taking us so far off course,
Mm-hmm.
because we're centered. And that's what I love human design around, the fact that Ra, the creator of human design, was given the information of this monopole. And the monopole resides right behind the sternum.
Mm-hmm.
And in my view, that's like the neurons of the heart,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're already speaking 6 seconds out into the future before the mind can even catch up. And it holds us together. And when we're coming from this space, and now I'm going to take you to another analogy. I look at it like a merry-go-round, right? When you're on the outside, you're holding on and gripping, right, for dear life. Like you don't want to be flung off this wheel. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're sitting right in the middle of the merry-go-round, like you're centered. You're not wobbling, you're not getting pulled anywhere. You're fully centered and you can just be there. And the whole world goes around and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm right here. So that's how I see this monopole energy, and the way human design teaches us to make decisions
Mm-hmm.
from this centered space.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that goes on in business, we're not chasing it. We are receptive to it. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's funny as you're explaining that. And if I'm chasing business, it feels like that's limiting my ability to give value,
Yes.
right? If business is
Yes.
giving value, but I'm chasing, I'm not able to give value. And so I'm not
Exactly.
getting because I'm not giving.
That's right.
And I
Yeah.
really, the sales is service. I'm probably the cheesiest sales coach, but it's like sales is service.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
only if it's all clicked into place. I think it can only be that if it's all clicked in. And
Yes.
and this is interesting cyclically where we're at in the world. There's certain things that
Yes.
it's like the bottoms are falling out. And
Yes.
I truly find so much that's out there is void of value.
Yes.
And so
Yes,
whatever
because
is
it's trying to get you to chase that dollar value, right?
and so you're
Instead of actually, yeah.
yeah, so whatever was void of value, it's like that's just being evaporated.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so for new entrepreneurs, like you have an opportunity to give value,
Yes.
period.
Yeah.
And
Period.
then yes, the sales will
Yes.
come because you were giving service. And that's the sales as
Right.
service. And
Yeah.
then okay, now I'm getting. I love that.
And
That's fascinating.
like like I also see it as, when you're centered in
Mm-hmm.
your reality in your life, people migrate to that because they're like, I want that centeredness.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to grip for dear life flying around this wheel. I don't want to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So when entrepreneurs are centered, that is value right
Mm-hmm.
there, because you're
Mm-hmm.
showing people you don't have to chase, you don't have to run, you don't have to hold on for dear life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just showing up like that, being that embodiment, is is more value than, like you say, 90% of what we see in the world.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And that's interesting from a standpoint of people not having models for that.
Yes.
Like that grounded. I made up I guess is this a pun, harmony, but it's spelt with the E.
Mm, okay.
And so when you're in harmony, like that, and that's also going to be naturally clicking in. And
Yes.
like when you're seeing the chaos, it, I don't know. It's like I think around alcohol, this was how this like the
Mm,
frenetic energy really clicked for me years ago, where it was like they say if you have alcohol in your system for a day, when you consume alcohol, it stays in your system, I think, up to 48 hours. And so you're level of thinking would be diminished in theory for 2
Yes.
days. And then I was like, whoa, how many leaders are drinking and where's their optimum clarity? Is that ever being reached? And then if we have all leaders that aren't clear, and I'm not saying everyone's a drinker
Yes.
and that all drinking's
No,
bad, but it just,
no,
you're saying,
no.
but beyond just the drinking is like, where's that optimal clarity and leadership around the world? And
Yes.
we don't see many models of
No.
grounded, clear, embodied, maybe some more and more because of the contrast is so intense.
Yes.
But, and then when you are that, it is just such an activation and the ripple,
It
like you were
does.
saying, it's like just from being there, clients can
Yes.
feel it. And what's clicking too is that you have clear messaging because of that,
Yes.
which for so many people that are new in that chaotic, the messaging isn't there, the clarity around this is what I do. And so you're just still in that frequency of chaos and it continues on and on. And that I did that for a while actually. So it feels
Mm-hmm.
very,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
very real, I
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
lived.
Yeah. Yeah. I've lived it too. I totally get
Mm-hmm.
that. And what I love, okay, so I'm looking at your design and in your solar plexus, which is undefined, but you have
Mm-hmm.
a hanging 55 and a hanging 36, which means that you're actually designed to help people be okay with that empty feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about alcohol, one probably a space that you probably make money in is helping people recognize, like, how are you trying to fill that void?
Mm-hmm.
Are you filling it with alcohol, food, unhealthy sex,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Shopping.
shopping, all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Because that actually, that 55th gate is an energy field that we're going to in 2027.
Mm.
What it's about abundance. But mostly we've been trained to look at it through the lens of lack.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have a sense of lack, again, we fill up our junk drawer with stuff that doesn't serve us, but
Mm.
it fills that empty space in the moment. So one of your greatest profit
Interesting.
abilities is to help people go into that silence and be okay with it. Go into
Mm-hmm.
that emptiness and be okay with it.
You know what that feels like to me is making room, like you have to create the space for the
Mm-hmm.
prosperity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And if you're just in the
Yes.
frenetic chaos and in the, which can be so perpetuated by the scarcity, and then you
Yes.
just don't have room. And that just this wavelength of thinking, and this is also interesting because I like to operate in the intersection of business and well-being. But
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
nexus of this, I was like a closet yogi. I didn't from high
Mm.
school. I used to skip school and go to yoga. I was a swimmer, so I wanted to be a better swimmer. And I was going through this whole thing. And then, I'm in the finance world and I'm doing all of that. And I live these two different worlds and see, people that are quote unquote in wellness and they're having huge financial issues, or
Yes.
they're in ultra high net worth and they're having major wellness issues. And that was really for
Yeah.
me, it was like, how can we help this balance out a bit and get these people a little more of that and these people a little more of this? And this is the business and
Yes.
well-being like
Yeah.
intersection. But what I've seen as a pattern is it feels like cancer to me. Like scarcity
Mm-hmm.
feels like cancer. It
Yes.
feels like it cuts you off. It feels like you're isolated. It feels just like, the shriveling and how many people are in that thought pattern of scarcity. And then they're
Yes.
not clearing it out or giving the space and making the room. And then there's not
Yep.
the room for so that's my most operational experience of it without,
Yes.
I used to operate in that very woo, but it's lived, it's grounded in, and
Yeah.
you can have
Yeah.
that, but you have to get out of a thought pattern that's
Yes.
perpetuated by every turn of the
Yes.
world we live
Yes.
in.
Yes.
That's how it keeps a
100%.
lot of this going.
Yes. So just for fun yesterday,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what can I bring to my mentorship group around money?
Yes.
And I heard this, how much money is there in the world? Like
Uh,
for every currency and all that. So I thought, well, AI must be able to tell me this, right?
uh-huh.
So I type it in. Guess how much money or monetary instruments that there is worldwide. Just take a
I think
fancy
a
guess.
hundred trillion.
Okay. It's actually 2.5 quadrillion.
Okay. I was
Okay.
off by a lot.
A little bit. Just a little bit. So when we look at that and we pull our lens out of there and we go, hold on a minute. Are we not powerful enough to receive just a tiny sliver of $2.5 quadrillion? Of course we are.
I love this. I think that there's something funny about the AI's evolution because I started, this is around December. I was like, okay, what's enough to get me excited every day? Like I need something really big. There's a practice with the massive transformative purpose. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, and this is what came, and you're gonna appreciate this with the quadrillion. What if 1 billion founders are doing 1 million in annual revenue?
Yeah.
And I Googled how much, or AI'd, how much does this
Yes.
come out to be? And it was kept giving me the wrong answer. This is probably,
Mm.
however many months ago, it kept saying 1 trillion, 10 trillion. It was wrong answers. And I was like, this is a quadrillion. And I like, what
Yes.
if, like, so in this thought, we add one more quadrillion by
Yes.
empowering entrepreneurs. And it's
Yes.
entrepreneurs is solving problems to provide that exchange of value.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you give this value in a value depleted world across the world. We have a lot of listeners in India. And so
Okay. Okay.
across the world, okay, how can I provide value in my community to the world, whatever
Yes.
that audience is?
Yeah.
And I'm solving problems in a world full of problems and depleted value. And for me, that was such a download of we haven't even begun to see what is possible.
No, we haven't. I would totally agree with you. And recognizing that, when we started this conversation, you also said like the value ripples out.
Mm-hmm.
So if a billion founders put $1 million through their receptacle,
Mm-hmm.
that $1 million goes on infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no finite manner in which this is going to flow, right? Because if I give you $5 and buy that book behind you, you
Mm-hmm.
take that $5 and you buy something else, which then they take that $5. Now all of a sudden it's a $15 value, and it
Mm-hmm.
started out with $5. So if a billion entrepreneurs could just flow that, the exponential expansion is
Mm-hmm.
really what God is asking us for,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think the universe, I don't think that we're here by accident. And I think we're all receptacles for this, for the expansion. Like, how far is the infinite, right? How far is the infinite?
And what's really possible with the infinite?
Yes, yes, yes.
Even that as a question can shift a thought pattern immediately.
Immediately, immediately.
Because then
Because
what other solutions come through when you
that's
go
right.
there?
Yes, because everything is available.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it as the field of potential. It's there. It's nothing until we receive it
Mm-hmm.
and we bring it into the 3D world and we witness it and we expand it and we play with it and we have joy with it and we, revere it because it is an act of God that it came through us. So the field of potential has nothing in it and yet has everything available. But
Mm-hmm.
we have to be open to receive that capacity to let it flow through us.
What are your favorite practices to support, and what do you recommend around that cleaning out, clearing of the kind of junk? Does feel a little of the junk DNA.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's different ways to talk about it in the physical world, but what are your favorite?
So again, I'm going to go back to design. I'm going to look at the charts
Mm-hmm.
and anything that's white, you want to research that and go,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So I would ask you a question like, what have you learned about progress, right? Like, how have you taken times of crisis and moved them into a progressive state? Because you have the 35 undefined open, you have the 36 hanging dormant. So you're designed to feel crisis, feel nervousness, go through these moments of, ooh, in an experience. But what happened on the other side of it? And that's what you get to now share with the world. So that's what I love. Instead of going, oh, I failed. No, I didn't fail. I made it through that crisis. And this is what I learned, and this is what I can teach people. And that's really the beauty of design, is to take all that openness and go, don't look at this as being a victim. Look at this as like, ooh, curiosity, and how can I move this frequency through me and teach other people how to do this. That's why I love design, because it is a clear map of all of this.
And that's specific, right? You're sharing that with me, and then 10 people in a room, it could look very different, or likely will look very different.
Yes. Yeah. Because everybody's charts are totally different. So, and everybody's life experience. So for example, like there's a Facebook group, right, around human design. It's not mine, but I am a part of it. And it's like, well, tell me what career I can have. Well, your design is mechanical. Like, what's your life experience? Right? Your design could say, well, you're going to be a heck of an entrepreneur, but you've never actually been exposed to it. So we need to know what the life experience is. There's an animation feature to this mechanical view of the human design chart, right? So it's so important to have both of these aspects so that we can work with it and massage it and see the best version of you, not just based off of the mechanics, but based off the laws of the universe and your
lived experience.
Life experience.
That's interesting, because like in that example of the entrepreneur, if I hadn't seen that, which I did in some ways and didn't in some ways, and so it's sort of showing me it's possible, sort of not. And if those are independent of the mechanics saying you're an entrepreneur, oh, there's a gap here because you don't even know what that means and what's possible and the importance of creating. I think that's the mirror neurons, like showing, okay, this is what's possible. That's interesting. And that what you were saying about like, how do you transmute the struggle and what's on the other side of it? One of my like favorite keys to give people is your anxiety is literally risk assessment for the finance folk, right? Like listen to your risk assessment, right? And then you're going to know more, and it could prevent some of that, or you're going to have to go through it. But if you start tuning into that, you have, where's the anticipation because of that ding, 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 warning, warning, and having to go through some of that struggle and understand, oh, that's what that is all about. Doesn't need to be, pharmacologically, we could look at the warning sign here, make sense of it, and move forward, versus like, I'm so anxious all the time. It's like, are you listening at all? Are you listening at all?
Exactly. And in design, actually, we talk about fear, anxiety, and worry as like they're the door to open to see the awareness on the other side. Right? Because without like if we didn't have any of these, just like, if you want to call it intuition or instinct or any of that kind of stuff, right? If we didn't have fear, anxiety, or worry, we wouldn't have this capacity to then be aware. Right? Like you look at an animal out on the Serengeti, if they didn't have that fear and instinct, they would have zero awareness that there's something waiting in the long grass to get them. So what humans have done, like you say, we've looked at this and said, well, how can we drug this out of ourselves? How can we numb this so we don't feel this? Well, then you'll never get to the awareness, because that's the whole point of anxiety, fear, and nervousness, is to recognize there's an awareness on the other side. Let's go there. Let's explore it. Right?
Yeah. And maybe that just being a part of honing the intuition. Honing it through those experiences, and the deeper you can let yourself understand it and not be afraid of it. That's fascinating. I know we're getting close to time. I feel like I could
Yes.
talk to you for a
Yes.
hundred
I know.
hours more.
I know.
What
Me
tell us
too.
tell us more, which we definitely need to have a follow-up conversation. I want to
Awesome.
talk more
I'm
about
in.
nature, soil,
Yes.
farming. That's a huge passion of
Yes.
mine. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk to you more about the stars and
Yes.
likely the computer program or simulation, maybe that's star
Yes.
driven and how that's affecting this
Perfect.
all. So that those will be, we'll
Yes.
note that. But talk to
Sure.
me and share with our listeners about the mentoring. I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge. This has been so fun. And I'm so excited to digest this conversation. What is that mentoring container? And I know you have a special offer for our audience about getting some free access to that for a limited period of time.
I do. I do. So, a mentorship group, it was created from response. I am a manifesting generator of sacral response in human design terminology. And I had someone just reach out to me randomly and say, hey, would you start a mentorship group? And I'm like, oh, okay. So it was in pure response. So what this group is we come together and really we just look at design through the mechanical piece. We look at it through the lens of gene keys as well.
Mm.
And we also look at it through the laws of the universe and go, okay, how can we animate these mechanics in a different way?
Mm-hmm.
So we meet, I'm telling you, we meet multiple times a month.
Okay.
I have some like beautiful mentor coaches inside of there. So it's not only me that teach inside of there, but there I have mentor coaches. And we go through this whole thing because I think a community is so important if you actually want to learn a skill and implement it and be centered in your life. Having that quote unquote tribe, having that community around you is really important. So there is an offer right
Mm-hmm.
now if you want to enter into the mentorship and just taste us, get a flavor for what's going on in there. You can do that for 30 days. And then after that, it is an investment of $197 a month. We meet, like you get live human interaction in there like 6 times a month.
Awesome.
Yeah, 8 times, sorry, 8 times a month. Because we
Even
do it
more
every Tuesday,
awesome.
every Thursday.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
sounds like someone can get some guidance. I think what's
Yes.
most important that you've touched on among so many things is that clearing out of the conditioning, giving the
Yes,
room for what's possible. And it sounds like
yes,
this is a very supportive container to navigate that process.
yes, yes. And lean into decision making because I do
Amen.
not think that anything starts unless you make a decision.
Hmm.
If you're
Yeah.
on the fence, you will be on the fence forever. And it's going
Hmm.
to get really sore on your, nether regions if you're sitting on the fence all the time. Right? So we want to make a decision. We want to teach people how to stand in that and make a decision from a real empowered space
Mm-hmm.
so that whatever comes, you're okay because you're centered.
You know how to
Yeah,
navigate that.
that's right.
I love
Yeah,
it. I was going to
yeah.
ask you what's your closing thought, but I do feel like that is it, the decision. That's been a really
Yeah.
important message to reiterate
Yes.
over and over and again. So,
Yes. Yeah.
thank you, Leann, so much. Power of
Thank you.
self. This was powerful, feeling charged for the rest of the day. And thanks everybody for tuning into the Lila Life Show. We will see you next week. Many blessings in the journey and a path towards harmony with an E. All right.